Yes.
Perfect.
Uh, yes. Good evening, everyone. So welcome to this webinar where we're going to talk about the budget impact on healthcare business profitability margins, I think, for 2026. Um, I think this just probably to highlight this, that this webinar is in conjunction with the Keras Managers Group. So we want to give a big thank you, I think, to Priska for just allowing us probably to use a platform to share some of the knowledge that we have. I think like what Sam said, we've got a Q&A question towards the end. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat. If you can't type, and then we'll try to answer them. If you can hold on until the end of the meeting, and then we can answer any questions towards the end. I will go straight into the agenda for the day. We've got just a few things that we want to probably cover. Some of the slides will probably be extending at the back of these major topics. So we're going to talk about what is Blue Hector. For those who do not know Blue Hector, who are probably meeting us for the first time now. We're going to talk about some key budget highlights that affect only healthcare businesses, or which we thought were deemed necessary just to affect. So we're not going to talk about everything. And then from there, we'll channel our conversation to talk about annual salary thresholds. We're going to look at the minimum wage effect at the back of that. What action should business leaders take in this environment in preparation for next year? And then we'll wrap up with the Q&A. So this is what we expect to cover today. Again, like I said, if you've got any questions during the conversation, just put it in the chat. But if you want to talk, there's a Q&A section at the end. I'll go straight to talk about Blue Hector. So what is Blue Hector? So Blue Hector is an accounting firm that is based in Milton Keynes, and we work mainly with businesses in the healthcare space. And presenting this webinar today is Kuzi. That's my photo there when I looked a little bit younger. Yes, we work with mainly business in the healthcare space, hence why this webinar is tailored for business in the healthcare. So we provide quite a variety of services, so from payroll, um, management accounts and corporation tax. We also help with financials for tenders. We also help with pricing. So if people are looking on how to price some of the services they have, which is probably going to also be part of this conversation here. Now, just to make sure that everyone is paying attention, and I'm not going to spend much time on this, but I want to check if everyone is paying attention. And I'm going to ask for the business leaders that are here. You can respond in the chat. So there's a chat function in the chat. If you can just respond and let us know, are the current contracts that you have are profitable? So we just want to know if people know. If you don't know, you just put I don't know. If you know, if it's a yes, put a yes. If it's a no, put a no. I just want to hear the temperature in the room to find out from your experience, are the current contracts that you have profitable? This can be supported living, this can be domiciliary care. So I can see a yes and a no. That's excellent. If you don't know, again, it's just put I don't know. I can see Panache has put in there not yet. Yeah. Just waiting for a few more responses. And you see that as you're typing this is going to form the part of our conversation to understand what is the impact, or what are the signals that we're getting from the budget that are going to affect profitabilities for businesses in the next coming year. And this is very important. So yeah, I still see some people typing, so I'll be able to do that. And this profitability here, it's important for us to kind of think about how can we start getting prepared for it. And today we're going to probably discuss one of the key elements. One of the key elements that affect profitability, especially for healthcare businesses. Yeah, so I've seen some responses, but thank you so much for those that responded. I'm going to go straight and talk about the key budget highlights. So if we look at the budget that was presented by the Chancellor after leaking scandals and all the things that went with it. The budget finally arrived. And there are four key areas that I think will affect us as healthcare businesses that I need to speak about. So the first one is that corporation tax. Corporation tax remain unchanged. So the main rate of corporation tax is 25%. Obviously, we still got the marginal rate that is from 19 to 25% for corporation tax. So we expect corporation tax to remain as it is, and it's not going to change. Another key area was around income tax. So if you remember, I think beginning of November, the Chancellor had gone out on TV and started talking about how they preparing the nation for income tax. And then it happens that a few days after that, when she had a bit of a backlash, she decided she's not going to raise any income tax. So income tax threshold are expected to remain or frozen until April 2020. Obviously, by virtue of this, it just means that the government is expecting to raise more tax in what they call the physical drag, which probably will be a conversation for another day if we're going to talk about economics. The key one that is definitely going to affect us, which is going again, obviously, to frame our conversation today, is going to be around the national minimum wage. So the national minimum wage is going to rise by 4.1% to £12.71 an hour. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, I think, later on. And then another one also that has gone up is the dividend and savings income, mainly for dividends for most of us, because if we make a profit, that profit is distributed as a dividend, and there's a 2% increase for dividends from April 2026. How is it important? This is important. If you are planning to take dividends, my advice is plan to take them early before this 2% rise kicks in, because it obviously will impact the dividends that you get from the dividends that you get from your business. So those are the key taxes that we have. So the tax that we're going to focus on is the national living minimum wage. Why am I going to focus on this? I think we all know that for businesses in the healthcare, the majority of our costs, or the bulk of our cost, is made up of staff wages or staff costs. As a result, any movement in the national living wage or in the minimum wage is going to have a direct impact on how profitable our business is going to be, or on how profitable the contract. So if you remember when we started this conversation, my question was, hey, how many of us think that the profits that we currently have are profitable? And we're going to test this profitability as we go into the next step. I'm going to introduce this topic called the annual salary threshold. Now, the reason why I'm introducing this now is I'm going to park the issue around the national minimum wage on the side, and I'll introduce this one. For us, most directors here, or most business owner here, the bulk of our staff, I think from just looking, more than 80% of most businesses, their staff is on the certificate of sponsorship, or in fact, what we call, I think, COS staff. And the staff that is on the COS, especially from April this year, we know that they are paid a special rate, which is the £12.82. And talking to most directors or business owners, I found that people don't really know where this £12.82 is coming from. So I'm going to explain where this £12.82 is coming from and how it will set to affect what we're going to do moving forward. For the £12.82 is basically calculated using what we call the annual salary threshold, which is 25,000 per year. And it's divided by the number of weeks that a person works, or that is expected. The standard average number of average hours worked on a week is 37.5, divided by 52 weeks, that's where the £12.82 is coming from. And as you can see, the £12.82 is actually different from the minimum wage, which is £12.71. So in the next coming year, the minimum wage is going to be £12. So already there's a difference in them. But I want us as managers, as we start to have these conversations around minimum wage, maybe not to focus mainly on the minimum wage, but to focus on the annual salary threshold. Why do I say that? We know that for even most managers that are here or business owners that are here, the bulk of our staff are not local staff. The bulk of our staff or the bulk of the people that are working or that are delivering care for our businesses, they are actually on the certificate of sponsorship licenses. So they are the bulk of our employees are sitting there. So if we plan using the minimum wage, I feel there's going to be a little bit of a discrepancy, because you are going to find that when it actually comes to paying people, you're not going to pay people on a minimum wage, but you're actually going to pay people using this special rate. And as we know that the government has only indicated what the new rate is going to be for minimum wage, but they haven't indicated what the annual salary threshold rate is going to be for next year. And from our reading and our consultation, we know that this rate is likely to go up. In 2025, around April, when the new tax year kicks in, this is going to go up. And no one has spoken about it, or even in the budget, it wasn't even mentioned, because this is mainly driven at the back of the policy for immigration, nothing to do really with the budget. So as a result, when we did our digging, we actually found that most healthcare professionals, although they're focusing on the minimum wage, the rate they need to be focusing on is the annual salary threshold. Going back to the reason that I mentioned, number one, the bulk of our staff, more than 80% of the staff or the carers that are actually working for us, they're not local, they're all on sponsorship visas. So as a result, or when those sponsorship visas are also coming to an end next year, they're going to be renewed not on the minimum wage or on the current rate they are, but they're going to be renewed based on the annual salary threshold for that particular time. Now, with this mind, or with this putting this hat on of the annual salary threshold, we need now to have a little bit of forward thinking to say, okay, fine, for 2026, what do we think this rate is going to be? Or the 1282, what do we think this rate is going to be? And using the same increase that the government has used to estimate the increase in national minimum wage, we believe that, or we think based on our analysis, that we expect a similar level of growth. So minimum wage is increased by 4.1. If we take the same notion to say, okay, fine, minimum wage increased by 4, it means that our annual salary threshold is also likely to increase around that area, which is 4.1%. If we do our same calculation to find out what that rate is going to be on an hourly basis, you're looking at an hourly rate of £13.33. So an increase of 4% means from 25,000 we go to 26,025, divided again by 37.5 hours per week, divided by 52 hours per year. So you're looking at a rate of around £13.34. Now, £13.34 is a huge difference, but there's a huge difference between £13.34 and the 12.71. And this disparity in rates can have a proper big impact in how profitable a contract is going to be, or how a contract looks. So we, again, just going back, what we have done is we have used the same increase rate of 4.1% to try to extrapolate or to try to estimate where we think the annual threshold rate, or the rate that is, I think that is popularly known as the COS rate, is going to be for 2026. How have we done this? Because we know that for most of our staff, they're actually paid at a COS rate. And I've been speaking to some managers again, talking to them. I know that as much as you've got staff that might qualify for the minimum wage, it becomes really challenging to try to justify why someone who potentially have got more experience and who is local is getting paid a lower rate than that. So hence why we try to do that. Hence why we want to focus on the annual salary threshold as the rate. Now, if we are to say, if someone is getting paid £13.34 an hour, the next question is, at what rate should we expect councils to be paying us for us to be able to be profitable? Or if we are saying, you know what, someone is getting paid £13.34, what rate should you as a manager or you as a business owner should you be expecting the council or at least the local authority, or even if you're going to a private client, what is the minimum amount of money that you expect to be paid? Now, for this example, I'm just going to use home care because home care is easier to probably to understand, and it's more common with most providers. Now, the same concept can also be used for supported accommodation and supported living, but for this example, I'm going to use a home care example. Now, looking at my example here, in the case of a home care of someone who is getting paid an hourly rate of £13.34. So if we take that as our gross pay, um, uh, the total price that we need, there are a few other adjustments that we need to. So if someone is working, as much as you are paying them £1.34, we also need to understand that we are not only just paying them £1.34. There's other things that sit behind that. So for example, we've got holiday pay, you've got NI at 15%, you've got pension at 3%, and you've got other wage-related costs. Other wage-related costs will be things like training. When you pay for staff, this might include things like transport as well, included in there. So you find that when you actually pay somebody £13.34, the total amount that you are effectively costing the business is around £18.08. Now, this is very, very important because this is just showing us what we call the direct costs for employing or for paying someone at an hourly rate. So if someone is getting paid £13.34, we have to factor in holiday pay. We have to factor on national insurance. This is the employer national insurance side of things. We have to factor in pension. We also have to factor in other wage-related costs. On top of that, there are what we call indirect costs. So, for example, management costs, office costs, things that are happening behind the background that facilitate for us to be able to service or to provide service to our clients. And in this case, this is just an estimate that we use £7.33, which is the average. So we got actually this one from the Association of Homeowners, which they call the average cost per business in the UK from a survey which they have done. That's where we got that. But the number will be different from a business. So each business is going to have different business costs depending on the setups. For example, if a business has got more offices, their costs might be higher than maybe a business that is only operating from one first. But that one is an average, and we're looking at an average total cost of £25.41. So if you provide 1 hour of care, it's going to cost your business £25.41. In addition to that, right, we have to put markup. Again, the average profit margin for a home care business is around 7%, which is in this case £1.78. So the total price that I would at minimum expect to be charging for providing 1 hour of care is £27.90. Now, this is quite significant. Why? Because it's being driven by the £13.34 that we speak about. Now, from us, which is the next question that I'm going to ask, how many of us know that or are prepared to go and challenge the councils that we're working with for us to get paid this amount of money? Or how many of us have calculated this amount for us to review that, you know what, am I getting paid in a way that is profitable? Am I making enough money for the contracts that I'm actually currently servicing? And I don't know if as business managers, these are the conversations that I expect you to now start thinking about. That, you know what, as I go into next year, obviously this is an example that we use. In this case, if this was my business, I'm already starting to think which contracts are paying me at least £27.19 as I go into next year. I'm already starting to think about that. I'm already starting to plan with my team to say which contracts are paying me below that. Can I now start thinking or talk what plans do I have with my team to make sure that we are coming out as profitable as probably we would hope for. And this is very, very important. Why? Because our failure for us to build a proper costing sheet like this one on the screen means that we might be losing money where we think we are making money, or we might actually be making a loss when we think we are being profitable. And as business owners, these numbers are really important. And we'll talk more about how do we make sure that we've got these numbers. How do we make sure that we use this when we are, for example, applying for tenders or going to negotiate with local authorities or even with private clients to make sure that our costing sheet is as accurate as possible. Now, in light of this, as we're looking, we came across a report from again from Home Care Association, where it was talking about where are local authorities. And one of the key things that we noticed that local authorities are in a little bit of what we call the local authority conundrum, in the sense that they're expecting you as providers to provide very good care, right? They want you to provide very, very good care, but they don't want to pay for that care. Why? Because their rates are very low. This is because the local authorities, their budgets are squeezed. The government is not giving them enough money, but the demand for care, on the other hand, is also increasing. And I came across this chart here that I thought would be interesting for us to share, which is the average local authority fee rates. Again, in this case, I'm just looking at home care, like I said. The average local authority fee rates for 25-26. And this is the survey that was done by the Home Care Association. And you can see that London, which I would probably say is one of the most expensive place to provide a service, is right at the bottom there. And with Southeast at the top at around £24.94. And £25.94, sorry, I said 20, that £25.94. If you want to compare it to just an estimate that we've done for next year, already you can see that if that's the rate that we're going to go for, there's a little bit of a loss that we're making there. And the question now is, what then do we need to start adjusting to make sure that these contracts will come in profitable? And we'll talk about there are basically kind of two ways to look at it if you want to see how profitable the contracts are. Again, we know that from that report, we know that most local authorities, they have not matched even the current national minimum wage. And then on top of that, we are not working with the national minimum, national living wage. We are actually working with what we call the COS rate, which is even higher than that. So again, is to think how best do we do that? How best do we make sure that we can cover for that shortfall? We know here, based on that report as well, the average fee increased by 5.6%. Against cost increase of about almost 10 to 12%. So if you look overall in terms of us, business supporting, the local authorities are not even matching, or maybe some of the local authorities are not even matching, with an average fee rate of 24.10. Even in its current standard, that is still very, very low for most of us. And I know that especially the people in the home care space, most of us are saying that, you know what, things are really tight and the margins are really, really tight. Now, with this picture in mind, I'm not here to come and talk about doom and gloom, but I think the key for us is how can we be proactive? Why? We're in 2025, already starting to think about what's going to happen in 2026. How can we be proactive as business owners to make sure that we can run a profitable business? And what are some of the things that we need that we can start doing? So I'm going to encourage, I think, all of us here to take action. And it's very, very important that we take the right action to grow our business. It's very, very important that we take that right action for us to be able to grow our business. The first thing that I'm going to talk about, which I put what I call the 4 pillars that you hear. Number one is you need to understand your numbers. In other words, you need to understand your financial metrics for your business. by having effective accounting systems. Now, for you to be able to calculate some of these numbers that we're talking about here, so for example, if you want to know your business costs, these numbers are unique to every business. Whilst I've got an average that I've used here for £7.33, these numbers are going to be unique from business A to business B. And you as a business owner, you need to make sure that you know your business costs. You need to know on a monthly basis how much am I spending on certain items, because that will determine or that will drive those business costs. If you know your numbers, it will help you to understand how can I lower that business cost. So in this case, if we lower that number, the business cost, from £7 to, let's say, £7.33 to £5, it will obviously help us to push and become more profitable. So I'm going to ask you, as managers or as business owners, do you know your numbers? Do you know how much profit you made last month? Do you know how much profit you made one quarter? Or it's one of those issues where you have to wait until the end of the year when your accountant has done your numbers, and then once the accountant has done them, that's when you have an understanding. That what we call historical looking, or that level of reporting where you're focusing mainly on the historical performance of the business, is not going to help you much. You need to know how your business is doing at the moment as soon as last month, so that you'll be able to plan effectively. So I'm going to encourage you that you have to set up these financial systems. And I think for Blue Hector, we have helped our clients to make sure that they kind of get a timely report to know how their business is performing. And if there are things that needs to be changed, you have to change them now, because these things will affect your profitability. Number two, one of the things to think about is building a diverse client portfolio. Now, obviously, the example that I gave here was I'll say what we call the worst case scenario if you're working predominantly with local authorities. But if you're working with private clients, it might be different conversations altogether. I know a few people that work with private clients, and private clients tend to be more profitable than local authorities. So working with private clients, because you can deduct, whilst the work, maybe the volume might not be great, but it can help you to be more profitable. And again, look at private clients, you have to think more around what does your business look like online? Who is buying? How do private clients acquire? How do private clients acquire services? They are going to look at your website. They're going to look at your social media presence, which means that your website has to be presentable. Your social media has to be presentable. Are you getting feedback from your clients to show that good service that you're doing? So again, now this actually takes you to a different space for you to start thinking on how do I make sure that I can target that particular market. And if you do very well with private clients, we know that private clients, you can at least negotiate rates that are more profitable for you, and you'll be able to do that. But that private clients will require a different mindset compared to maybe writing a tender. Because if you're writing a tender, no one cares about what your social media looks like. No one cares about probably what your website looks like. As long as your tender numbers make sense and you can pass them, and you can you can pass their threshold. You probably going to be awarded that. So it helps you to definitely be able to explore that. Number two, you also might want to start thinking about being selective about who you work with. By doing that, I'm saying don't just accept any tender or any contract. I've come across clients that just say, oh, all I need is work. But actually, you know what? If you just take any piece of work and that work is not profitable, you're better off not doing any work than doing work where you're losing money, because all these things will add up. So I want to encourage you, be selective. Sit down, understand the numbers, have a look at, say, okay, fine, these are the rates that the council is paying. Are these rates going to work with my business? Which will go back to the first point that I spoke about. Do I even know my numbers for my business for me to be able to compare with the numbers that are coming on this contract? And at Blue Hector, we can help you set up these systems because we understand what costings are required and how these costings work. So I encourage you, please make sure that you understand your numbers. Have a look at all these things, because it will help you. And then lastly, apologies, I think on the slide there was a bit of a typo there because we put it. And then lastly is also engage with your accountants. Make sure that you speak to your accountants on a regular basis, and you have to be asking of them for this information. Ask them, how is my business performing? What are the things that I can start implementing? Which areas can I reduce costs? Because as you can see that local councils are getting squeezed, which means that for us, the margins are actually going to be lower, and it will probably become a volumes game where we've got low margins, but we want to make sure that we continue to build on very, very high volumes. Now, as we probably come to the end, I'm going to repeat probably some of the things that we covered again. We went through the key highlights for the budget. From the key highlights of the budget, we looked at what were the key things that moved or that resulted in us trying to pretty much trying to understand what's going to come ahead. And the assumption or our reasoning was, for most of us, whilst the minimum wage has gone up, we don't actually pay our employees at minimum wage. We pay them above the minimum wage because most of our staff are sitting within the certificate of sponsorship space. Because of that, we try to understand, okay, what do we think the rate for the certificate of sponsorship is? And if you remember, we came to about £13.34. And then from there, we try to calculate to say, okay, fine, if I'm paying someone £13.34, how do I calculate the rate that I'm supposed to be paid? And we went through our calculation, and then we compared that with the local authorities. Now, as we come to this, I'm going to probably open this time for questions and discussions. I don't see any questions in the chat yet, so I'm assuming that nothing about. So Sam, I'm going to ask for your help here. But are there any questions? I'm sure you can unmute and you can ask questions if you've got any questions. So I'm going to open to questions. You can unmute and ask questions if you want, or if you want, you can type in the chat, and then we can pick it up from there. Sam, help me. Are there any questions?
None so far, Kazi. Not
No
yet.
questions.
Just,
okay.
I think you gave such a good presentation that it was all clear. And
It was all clear, right? No questions for people.
No one has questions.
Yeah.
We do have a hand up.
Okay, that's good.
From Andrew. Andrew, please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, mine is not a question as such, is a contribution to what you have said. You have spoken very well about the increased costs of employing people on the certificate of sponsorship that is happening, and next year it will definitely go up.
Mm-hmm.
But as it operates, that people that are already on the certificate of sponsorship, they do not necessarily go up to the new home office rate, but to the national living wage. But it's always difficult to have a tiered approach when it comes to salary. So people are then forced to go to a single tier salary. And as you have said, that the local authorities are tight on budgets to increase what they pay. It is important, I think, for people to consider the number of employees that they have, is because reducing the cost is another way of increasing your turnover. And sometimes there has to be a strategy on the number of employees that you have. If you have got exact hours according to exact employees, who are on COS, you might be facing a problem. You might reduce the COS and supplement with a few that are on, say, 20 hours or dependent and so forth, so that when in other areas that are always variating in terms of the hours, you are not left with excess staff that you have to pay because they are on a fixed contract. So people should consider that as a strategy to see whether or not they still need the current number of employees on the sponsor license, or if they really need to go to the home office rate or remain on the new national living wage, depending on when the COS is starting. Then the other point that I had was yeah. So I think that's the point that I had, and is the other one is on the issuing of the COSs as well. People need to have a strategy when they issue out their COS.
Yeah.
Because if you give a COS for every 1 year, then every year the COS fee will be going up and so forth. So those are some of the things that you need to consider.
Yeah. No, I think you raised a good point, and I think even with this one, the one of the things that you've mentioned is that whilst we know that the rate for COS is going up, we can't look at it in isolation, because the challenge that you have is you can't have new people that are starting on a higher rate and your existing staff on a lower rate. What we found in most cases, you are also automatically going to be forced to pay everyone sort of the same rate. Hence why we even focused on that rate, because of the nature. I'll answer the question from Priska, and then I can see that Elite K has got a hand up. So maybe before Elite speaks, I think Priska had put a question in the chat saying, can I encourage my staff to opt out of pension? Now, maybe to answer this directly, Priska, no, by law, you're not encouraged you're not encouraged to ask staff to opt out of pension. And at the same time, also, I think with the opt out, maybe what you need to do is maybe just make sure that you fully inform them in terms of what is the process for them to opt out of pension. So I think, as you all know, if it's Nest in this case, as soon as you enroll someone, Nest usually send them what we call options to opt out, and just remind them, just ask them that they've done that. What we can't seem to be doing, we can't seem to be actively encouraging people to opt out of Next. But make sure that the staff knows their options, and if they want to opt out, they have to do it via Next, not to the employer, and then be able to take that. So I hope that will be. And then your second question was around what is the best way to avoid upcoming tax on dividends. Now, obviously, there are different strategies to this, but the simple one is, if you've got dividends to declare, make sure you just declare them before the 6th of April next year. That way, you know that your dividends are going to be covered in this way. Some of them are a little bit more complicated in terms of what is the best way to avoid that. But in its simplest form, that's make sure you get paid this year. I think I'll go with Elite Care first, and then I've got Dr. Matthew as number 2. So Elite, if you can ask a question, please.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to find out, regarding the rates on the people who are on certificate of sponsorship. I just wanted to clarify a little bit. I think I heard you very well, but I just wanted to clarify. So we've got people who started before the new rate was introduced, and they were on the 1221 rate.
Yes.
And then the new rate started of the 1282.
Mhm.
So does it mean we have to change the people that are on the 1221 onto the 1282, or they'll stay like that until their contract ends? I just wanted clarification on that, please.
Okay, yeah. So I think the simple answer is no, you don't have to change them until obviously their renewal is coming up. That's when it will come into effect. So you can have a 2-tier system. So if you remember what Andrew was talking about, you can have a 2-tier system. Some people who have just recently been renewed, I think, on that higher tier, and those people that were there already on 1221, you can definitely do that. But what we have seen is that, imagine you've got 2 employees in your organization, one who's just joined on a higher salary, and the one who's been working who's got more experience, who is teaching the new person that is coming on a lower salary.
Okay, I get it.
Exactly. Try to picture that. That might cause more problems than maybe the money you're trying to save. Hence why the assumption was that you are somehow going to be forced to kind of pay everyone the same rate, so that everyone is at least at parity, and to make sure that you don't have stuff that is disgruntled. That is where we were coming from.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that. And then the other one regarding, I think, is it Andrew who said about the certificate of sponsorship and remembering that if you giving them a year at a time, it becomes more expensive to the company. That's very true. However, I was giving kind of 5 years to staff, and I lost about 5 staff kind of a month or a month and a half to each other. So it's a big loss as well, because I would have thought that I've invested in those people, and they're going to stay with us for a duration of at least 3 years, but it doesn't happen like that. So in other ways, I'm now doing kind of like yearly, even though it's going to kind of cost me a lot of money. But I think, am I doing the right thing or am I not doing the right thing? Because either way, I'm losing. And I think now people tend to kind of stay a little bit longer with companies because they are all aware that COS is now hard to come by for companies. I'm not too sure, but it's a struggle.
Yeah, no, and I totally understand where you're coming from, but I think the balance is to also understand what's working for you. So whilst it might be maybe expensive to do in the short term, but it might be cheaper than to try to renew someone for 5 years and then they leave. And now I think Home Office is not refunding people as they used to in the past, so you effectively have kind of lost that amount. So I totally understand what you're saying. Exactly. So I think that balance just needs to be assessed probably on a company, on a business by business level in terms of what's required. I'm just looking at our time. I'm going to ask Dr. Matthew. I think he's got his hand up, just to ask his question. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you,
Thank you for answering me. Thank you.
Okay, man.
Hi, Kudzen Samuel. For me, honest, it's not a question. It was just to say thank you very much for the presentation. I joined late, but from the comments, it has been a very good presentation. As a broker specializing in health and social care businesses, we are deeply committed and we're very concerned with anything that affects health and social care businesses, especially managing costs. So thank you very much for presenting this.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Matthew. I really appreciate your support, and I think the whole point is just to make sure that we can bring more of these webinars and people can get a chance for them to be able to to learn, and we can share ideas as we move forward. I'm going to check, are there any other questions? Because I'm looking at our time, we are just almost bang on time. Are there any other questions? Because I think we had said we're going to run for 45 minutes and we've got about a minute left. No questions. I'm going to put out.
Sorry, Kudzi, just 1 minute on what
sure.
Elite said. If an employee leaves, the Home Office will refund the ISC of the remaining balance of the time pro rata. And you have to make a report on your SMS system. If you don't make any report on the SMS system, the Home Office might not know that the employee has left. So you might end up losing your ISC, which you are due to be refunded. But it's also important to note that the fee for 1 to 3 years is the same when it comes. So you need to consider maybe doing 3 years or so.
Yes,
but the last strategic point is for people not to do COS that go beyond July 2028, just in case you need to issue new COS at that time for 5 years. When you will get your employees for a longer period from that period to 2033.
Say that again, the last part, 33.
Sorry, Andrew. I think Elite was asking if you can probably explain the last part again.
Okay, so the last part is when people are doing their COSs in the meantime, because July 2028 is when the COS for the 6135, 6136 is going to come to an end. But if people are going to give them some COS that will end just prior to that, so that if need be, particularly in the light of the 10 or 15 years that are going to come on the settlement, then they can have a chance to give them new COS for a longer period that will cover them beyond 2028, at most maybe to 2033.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew. I think we might have a separate one just to talk about COS, because already we know that it's another hot topic in terms of some of the changes that are happening. So I think if we watch this space, we'll definitely do maybe another one with Tanlo, so that they can explain more of this to us. So I've got our contact details on the screen. Please, if you've got any questions that is accounting related, if you need help with costings, if you need help with setting up accounting systems, feel free to get in touch. Even if you want a consultation, it's a free consultation. We can see how we can help you to make sure that when you do your tender financials, or when you are starting to review some of these contracts, we can. So we've got 1 or 2 clients that we've been helped to approach councils to make sure that they can have good representation, because I think a lot of us saying, oh, councils are not listening, but we're not holding any numbers or anything for us to justify why we need an increase with the council. So thank you everyone for being in touch. What we'll try to do, I think, is to see if we can share our presentation after the call. I think I've got the emails of everyone who registered so that we can. But other than that, thank you so much and have a very, very good evening. Please follow us on social media if you can, and we can share some wonderful nuggets as well. Have a good night. Bye.
Perfect. Thank you, Kuzi.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.